Amiche e amici di DiLei, ben trovati. L'ospite che è oggi con noi non ha davvero bisogno di alcuna presentazione. Tra le più grandi star di Hollywood, vincitore del premio Oscar come miglior attore e nello stesso anno, il 2014, un anno fortunatissimo per lui, vincitore anche del Golden Globe. È ancora produttore cinematografico, televisivo e adesso anche scrittore con Greenlights, che è uscito in Italia per Baldini e Castoldi. Do il benvenuto su DiLei a Mr. Matthew McConaughey.
Good to be here.
Oh, did I spell your surname correctly, Matthew? Because I guess that around the world,
good. Matthew McConaughey. You said it the right way. I love it.
Ok, Matthew McConaughey. Nel 1992, quando avevi 23 anni, stavi recitando nel film Life's a Dream di Richard Linklater. Hai pubblicato una lista di 10 cose che avresti voluto fare nella tua vita. All'8° posto c'era quella di vincere un Oscar e al primo quella di diventare padre.
Well, I wrote that list. I remember the night that I wrote it. I was in college at university, and I was living in the fraternity house. I remember writing the list. The funny thing is, I wrote that list in 1992. I forgot that I wrote the list. I never looked at it again until I found it when I went through my journals to write this book, Greenlights. And that was just 2 years ago. I found that list and put it in here. And it moved my floor and shook me a little bit when I saw it, because I had achieved or was in the midst of achieving all 10 of my goals that I wrote in 1992. And one of them very specifically was number 8, win an Oscar for Best Actor. Now, I wrote that down 5 days after I started my first acting role ever. I didn't know that was going to be a hobby that I did for 2 weeks that one summer and never do it again, or what. But I must have had a hunch that was something that I wanted to pursue as a career and try and be great at. When I look at the list, become a father, find the woman for me and keep my relationship with God, take care of my mother and father. Well, my father just passed away, so just take care of my mother. Those are goals that I'm still in the midst of reaching. I still have more fathering to do. My kids are 12, 11, and 8. My mother is actually living with us now for the last 15 months since the pandemic. My wife and I have been together. We're coming up on our 9th anniversary. We've been together 15 years. So I'm still working on those and still working on my spiritual relationships. So I wouldn't change a thing. Like I said, I was just amazed that I had sort of almost prophetically put down something in 1992, forgot it, but obviously in here did not forget anything that I wrote, because I achieved them or am in the midst of achieving them.
Yeah. Matthew, devi sapere che io abito a Milano e ieri, andando in macchina verso il centro, ti ho pensato, perché ho incontrato troppi semafori rossi. Ho pensato a te, alla nostra intervista di oggi, volevo chiederti come faccio a trasformarli in semafori verdi?
And the literal red lights that we catch in life, like you caught, you slowed down. If you would have caught all green lights, you would have got there 10 minutes sooner. Yes?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we look at what that does to our day if you catch a bunch of red lights. All right. And this is in the very literal sense of catching red lights. I have met people or come across opportunities in my life because I got to that position 10 minutes later because I caught more red lights, that I wouldn't have had that opportunity or met that person if I'd have got there 10 minutes sooner like I wanted to. So sometimes the poetry of life in our interactions is that those times where we need to slow down lead us and have us right on time to get what we may need. Now, in the more metaphorical sense, the yellow and red lights, hardships, crisis, even deaths, the red and yellow lights in our life, they hurt. We don't like them, but they all have lessons in them that I believe we're here to learn. And once we open up to hearing that lesson, and look at the red and yellow light, the hardship, and go, there's something here for me. There's something I need. There's a reason. And let it come to us. Well, that's when they become green. Now, it doesn't deny the crisis. It just says, oh, I learned the lesson from the crisis. Therefore, I have evolved. And that is inherently a green light.
We really need to learn to go slowly in our life. and
we have to learn, though, that when they're, look, some yellow lights in life.
Yeah.
We don't need to slow down at every yellow light. Sometimes you get to a yellow light and you need to put the pedal to the metal and blow through that son of a gun, man, and get by it. Meaning, some crises in life we give too much credit to. Maybe we should not slow down at every crisis. And maybe we should just blow by some and go, I'm not going to give him credit. So that's how you deal with the yellow light sometimes as well. It's not to slow down at every one. Yes, we do need to slow down at the right ones, but not everyone. Some people I know are just wallowing. If you slow down at every yellow light in your life, every sort of resistance, and you give it credit, you're wallowing in the red lights. So it works both ways.
E Greenlights, che in italiano significa appunto semafori verdi, è anche il titolo, e ne stiamo già parlando da un po', di questo tuo incredibile libro, che definire autobiografia è riduttivo. Perché hai pensato fosse proprio questo il momento per scriverlo? Ha a che fare magari con il traguardo dei 50?
It's a good question, because I've been keeping journals for 37 years now. And I keep them in this huge treasure chest. And that treasure chest is so full of journals that it's overflowing. You can't even shut it. Now, every time I would go on location to make a movie, I would take that treasure chest with me and put it in my office, because I was like, maybe you'll have the courage to start opening those up. Because I thought there was something to share in there. I thought there was a book in all of those. I thought I could find a book that would be worth sharing in all of my journals. But I never had the courage to open the journals and see. So for 15 years, I carried those journals with me and never had the courage to open any of them up. Timing came. Maybe it's becoming 50 years old. But I got the courage to say, okay, I want to see if my journals have a book worth sharing in them. I first only had the courage to get a ghostwriter to come write with me. And that was a big leap. Well, that ghostwriter got pulled off the project by his company, because his company, the New York Times, were not allowing their writers to work on celebrity memoirs. So when he got pulled off the project, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to find another ghostwriter. And as soon as I said it, I went, no, this is a gift. That yellow light is a gift. This means you need to go write it. This is a sign that you need to go write it yourself, Matthew, is what I told myself. And so that ghostwriter getting pulled off the project was one of the greatest gifts I've ever been given, because then I put it on me. And I said, let's go away with our 37 years of journaling. Let's go to solitary confinement where you have nothing but your journals to entertain you. And let's see if there's something worth sharing with the world, which is what turned out to be Greenlights.
Quando hai iniziato a diventare famoso, Matthew, racconti che non riuscivi più a fidarti neanche di tua madre. Perché succedeva questa cosa, e oggi qual è il tuo rapporto con lei?
My relationship with my mom is great today. She's here. She's over in the house. She's been with us for 15 months since the quarantine. At that time, I just got very famous over one weekend with a film called A Time to Kill. What is that called? Tiempo di Muerte. I don't know how you say it in Italian, but I became famous. The world became a mirror to me. I lost anonymity. I didn't meet strangers anymore. People wanted to know my business. Well, my mother, who I would share things with, and then obviously, what's another way to find out my business? Well, go to Matthew's mother. Like anybody famous, you look for family members, you look for friends, you want to find out stories about them. Well, most of my friends were savvy enough to go, no, I'm not going to, it's not my story to tell on Matthew. Matthew can tell it himself. Not my mother. Boy, when the local cameras came to her and said, can you tell us about your son? She was like, oh, yes, come on. And, I turned on the TV one night and my mother was on the television giving a camera a tour through my childhood bedroom saying, and this is the bed where I caught him with so-and-so, and, you know, and this is his bathroom and his shower, and, oh, you know what I caught him doing in there? And I was like, Mom, and I called her. And I said, Mom, what did you do? And I can hear she's watching the show live like I am at her house on the other end of the phone. I can hear her watch it. She goes, what are you talking about? And I go, Mom, I can hear the show you did on hard copy.
The echo of the show. Yeah.
What'd you do? She goes, oh, that. I didn't think you'd find out. So I had to, you know, in my business, loose lips can sink ships. My mother had loose lips. So from that day on, for about 8 years, I could not share personal things with her for fear that she did not have a filter, for fear that she would share. Now, look, I'm a young man who just became famous. It's hard enough for me to try to get my balance on that fame that I had on my own without having a wild card for a mother who's over there going, yeah, and he did this. Oh, and he did this. So I had to have very metered and sort of boring conversations with my mom. I couldn't talk to her as my mother anymore. I would just call her on Sundays and I would just say, hi, how you doing? Love you. Goodbye. And then after about 8 years, I got secure enough in my position in Hollywood. I was secure enough with my fame that I was like, you know what? My mom can say anything she wants, tell any story she wants. It's not going to sink my ship. My ship is stable. My ship is built well. And so I took the reins off and let her go. And I've let her go ever since. And she's great. She's got some of the greatest stories that she tells that now it's fine for her to tell. But then, no.
E a proposito dei tuoi genitori, tra l'altro, torniamo un attimo al 1992, quando stavi girando il tuo primo film, l'hai citato anche tu prima, Dazed and Confused. Erano 5 giorni che avevi iniziato a girarlo e tuo padre muore improvvisamente. Nel libro scrivi che questo ti ha aiutato a essere meno impressionato, meno colpito e più coinvolto. Che cosa significa?
Okay. So when my father was alive, as with many of us when our father is alive, we know that if we get in trouble, they sort of have our back. They're a safety net for us. They're maybe even a crutch to lean on. When he left this life, all of a sudden I realized, oh my gosh, I don't have my dad to rely on to have my back. I don't have my dad to rely on to be my safety net. All of those things that my dad was teaching me, of what he was teaching me to become the man that he wanted me to become. Now, with my father gone, it's on me. And so I better stand up straight, look the world in the eye, and start taking care and take agency and really take care of myself, because I don't have the safety net of my dad being alive anymore. So in doing that, I noticed that there were things in life, mortal things, fame, money, people, that I had such reverence for. I was like, wow, I'm so impressed with that. And with my dad passing away, all of those mortal things lowered down to eye level. And I was not as impressed. I respected them, but not as impressed, more involved. Look them in the eye. At the same meter, the things that I had been looking down upon, condescending, patronizing, saying, oh, that's not worthy of me, or ha ha, rose up to eye level. And to me, the metaphor was the world was flat. My peripheral vision was wider. I could see further and more clearly, stood taller, head higher, heart higher, and walked forward with much more courage than I had before. Became more involved in life, engaged more in life, had the courage to engage more, take risk in life than I did while my dad was alive, because him being a crutch for me let me sit back and kind of be impressed with things, or let me sit back and condescend things. And so it was a sobering effect. It was a very sobering thing losing my father, which I think it is for at least all young men. And there's a lot of courage I got from his moving on.
Anche tu sei padre di 3 meravigliosi bambini, Levi, Vida e Livingstone. Che tipo di padre è Matthew McConaughey?
I think I'm a good father. I am a loving and caring father. I try to give them as much time as I can. I also try to not give them so much of my time that they don't create their own independence. I want them to be kind, conscientious, confident, autonomous human beings. I want them to dream, but I also want them to deal with reality. I want them to understand that the world's not easy, and that they have it very good, and that they should respect what they have. I want them to understand that it's not even as much of what you have, it's how did you get it? That there's a way to integritiously go through life with yourself, with how you treat people, with how you get your wins and how you get your successes in life. That there's a way to do it where you can be true to yourself. I want them to hopefully, lean into their own identities and figure out who they are and how they are autonomous, how they are original, and there's only one of them in the world ever. And to have the confidence to say, I'll go be my most authentic self. They're going through that now. They're 12, 11, and 8.
Yeah.
I'm a disciplined father. We have clear rules in the house and expectations. And I try to do my best to follow up on the consequences. And it's much harder as a parent to follow up on consequences than it is to just let things slide. It's much easier to say, see, yes to everything than it is to say, no, and here's why. Let me explain it, or here's the consequences. So I'm a father I have a similar moral bottom line as Camilla. Camilla and I have a very similar moral bottom line as parents, and that's very helpful. Because we both believe in the same way of parenting and what we want to help shape our kids to be and shepherd them to be. Yeah. At the same time, my kids are getting older now. So now I realize that to treat each one of them fairly is not necessarily to treat each one of them the same, because they're different little humans. They need different things, and they're sensitive in different ways. So I'm trying to customize my parenting to each one now, and also explain to the others maybe why my daughter or my son didn't get the consequence for what they did here, even though you get the consequence, because they didn't mean to, and it's their first time, and maybe you're a repeat offender, and you got to get the consequence because you knew what you were doing and you chose to do it wrong again. Yeah. I want them to be risk takers in their own life, not foolish, but want them to take risks. Again, gratitude is very big in our family too. It's very important for me in my own life, and I want it to be in my children's life, to be grateful for what you have, to be able to look around and appreciate that the sun rose again today, to appreciate that your mama can cook you a hot breakfast, to appreciate that our refrigerator is full, to appreciate that you got a skateboard to ride or a surfboard to surf, and that we can actually go to a place where you can surf, that not everyone can do that, to respect those things, and build upon them. So yeah, there's some of my views on fatherhood.
Parliamo un attimo di come forse il cinema e la tua vita hanno viaggiato di pari passo, perché dal 2010 in poi c'è stato un vero e proprio cambio di rotta nella tua carriera cinematografica. Sei passato da recitare film leggeri, commedie romantiche, a ruoli molto più profondi e anche forse complessi. Sono più o meno gli stessi anni in cui hai conosciuto e ti sei innamorato anche della tua attuale moglie Camilla Alves. Pensi ci possa essere qualche tipo di connessione, di legame tra le tue scelte professionali e quelle private?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Part of the reason I made that career change and stopped doing the lighter stuff that I was doing and got into more dramatic fare is that, look, dramas are inherently, in their definition of dramas, the ceiling of emotion and the basement of emotion are really as high or as low as you, the performer, want it to be. How do you feel about that? Well, go do that. That's real. That's real life. Sometimes it's R-rated too. The lighter romantic comedies do not have that bandwidth. They have a much more minimal bandwidth. We're like, oh, no, you can't get too high and you can't get too low. We have to be light. And there's something beautiful about that. But my life, when I met Camilla and then had our first newborn son, the heights of my happiness were so high, and my elations, and the depths of my sadness and anger were so much deeper. My life was much more vital. And I was wanting my work to challenge the vitality of the life that I was living, of the man I was becoming. And so the dramas are the work that allow that. And so that's why I made the change. And it's definitely no coincidence that happened right after I meet Camilla, who, as everyone knows, you find a good partner, one who believes in you and knows you truly. It gives you confidence. It gives you significance. It gives you courage. And our relationship very early on gave me that and more of that, to say, no, this is who I am and this is who I'm not going to be. And so there's no coincidence that happened professionally around the same time that I fell in love with Camilla and we had our first child.
Andando verso la fine di questa nostra bellissima chiacchierata, abbiamo parlato tantissimo di questi primi 50 anni di tua vita, ma poco dei prossimi 50. Come li vedi, Matthew?
Great question, and it's a question that I'm working on now. You know, I want to make choices. My choices I'm making now are legacy choices, meaning whatever I'm going to spend my time and energy and money on moving forward in my life, I want to spend it on things that are going to outlive me. I want to spend it on things that are going to grow after I am gone. That's what I mean by legacy choices. I'm considering leadership roles, from more writing to institutes, to churches, to politics. I'm trying to measure all different kind of categories. Along with me, you know, there's a couple of things that are non-negotiable that are going to go with me in whatever I do. And that's my children and my wife, my family. It is the prime time in my life and my children's life of me as their father. They're 12, 11, and 8. You know, right now, I'm their hero. When they get into their teenage years, I'm told I will not be their hero anymore. So I want to take advantage of that, you know, now, and be able to give them the time and take as many adventures as we can together and really get to know them and let them get to know me. So, you know, when you bring up those list of 10 goals that I wrote in 1992, and people read those and go, well, you've achieved them all. And I'm like, no, I haven't. The only one I've really achieved was winning the Oscar for Best Actor. The other 9, I'm in the midst of achieving. Yeah. I will be trying to achieve those until I leave this life. So my future is not necessarily about coming up with new goals as much as it is keep letting the roots go wider and deeper in the goals that you are in the midst of achieving right now.
In progress.
Sì.
Io non posso che ringraziare davvero tantissimo Matthew McConaughey per essere stato con noi, averci regalato la sua affascinante, ammirevole visione della vita. Thank you, Matthew, for being with us and for giving us your admirable, fascinating vision of life. Thank you again,
Grazie.
Matthew.
Grazie.
Thank you.
Ciao.